Bar staff of Reddit, have you ever had a man use the Safeword drink escape? And how often does it happen? Not an angel shot, but last week I had to meet my abusive ex-wife to talk about some things regarding our kids. I'm a male. I insisted that we needed to meet in public, so she begrudgingly agreed to meet at Chili's. Throughout the entire meal, she was being mean and hateful and cruel to me, but she was also quiet about it. I wasn't crying or anything. On the outside anyway. She was just being overly threatening and quiet to me. At a point during the lunch, our waiter thankfully positioned himself behind her and mouthed the following words to me. "Are you okay?" I kind of shook my head no, because I was afraid of leaving when the time came. We paid the check and were about to leave when the manager appeared with the waiter. The manager stood between my ex and myself and told her, politely, that she needed to leave on her own before she could become belligerent. The manager explained to her that he had called the police and that she needed to leave immediately. He then asked me, quietly, to have a seat and wait. They brought me another drink. The cops showed up quickly and made sure my ex had left. They walked me to my car and then followed me home to make sure I was okay. Not an angel shot, but these workers were angels to me. They paid attention to a terrifying situation and helped me more than they will ever know. No, but I have a slightly relevant story. Slightly. It involves a bar and a guy at least Mayo. I'm a line cook at one. I was kinda chilling in the hallway to gauge how busy we were getting so I could possibly take a break before we picked up. A very sweet, kinda nerdy guy got up from the bar and quickly walked towards the bathroom. On his way, he started crying. I walked into the bathroom with him and asked if he was okay. He said his date texted her boyfriend that he didn't know about, and some of his friends to come jump the guy because he couldn't afford to pay for all 8 of her cranberry vodkas. He said she was probably serious because he was peeping at her text, so she was nodding in and out. Definitely the bartender's fault for letting her get so fricked up. I told my manager. We put his tab on hold and escorted him out of the back door and hid him in the owner's truck. He was drunk enough that we didn't feel comfortable letting him drive, and Uber may take too long if this butt beating actually comes along. So I smoke my cigarettes and almost immediately after walking back inside, I hear a douchebag pull in. You know, a guy doing a burnout into the parking lot in his burgundy 1996 Honda Civic with mismatched bumpers, fenders and half of the hood spray painted matte black. I grab my manager and we pretend to have a conversation outside. He walks in. He was alone thankfully, grabs the skank from the bar and walks out. They ask if we've seen the guy she was with and we told him he was throwing up really bad, so we called him an Uber. I know we should have said no, but there were only like 5 people at the bar at the time. Everyone definitely saw him walk through the back door of the kitchen with us. Dude gets pee off saying his girl isn't paying for the tab and starts throwing rocks at our freaking windows. Owner grabs an old pool cue from the back and holds it above his head ready to kill this dude until the police got there. Mayo. Super douche and cranberry hose speed off after a few more rocks and a half butt swing at the owner, which resulted in a full power pool cue to the wrist. We eventually really did call the dude an Uber. Paid for the chick's drinks for him. He insisted he paid for his and the Uber, so we let him. Police were upset that we let the victim go before they could get a report and asked to watch our videotapes, which we only have inside unfortunately. I don't know what happened after that as I quit shortly after for a better position. Freaking craziest day at work though. Amazing story. Thank you for checking on that guy and helping. If a security guy counts as bar staff, was in a nightclub, working instead of a friend who had an exams next day. I took his 2 shifts since I had whole week free. There was a date where the guy was definitely afraid of a girl, asked for permission to engage and decided to calm 2 down. I took the man to our security booth where you have camera control, who was literally shaking out of fear. I had him calm down, paid for cold soda myself and gave one to the guy and I drank one myself. Instead of cigarettes. I hate smoking. After it, a nice talk. Turned out he was a businessman. I called him a taxi. Wanted to give me equivalent of $300. I said no, it's my job, but he insisted. Dang, it's a lot when you paycheck equals 800 USDs. Taxi arrived and took that guy to his home. He thanked me once again and gave me his number. Sadly I don't have it anymore. But still nice thing to happen. And just in case, it happened in Poland. Not bar staff and didn't happen to me. But my boyfriend, military, was roofied in a bar by a girl before we were dating. It's actually apparently not that unheard of for women near military bases to drug rape or coerce men into unprotected sex so they can get pregnant, since the military will take a massive chunk, I think 30-50%, of his paycheck and give it to the baby mama. His buddy got him out before anything happened, but he doesn't remember that night. Whoa, this is some evil crap. I worked in a pub club in Glasgow, and there was this night I was the victim of a crazy drunk woman. It happened shortly after the smoking ban. This woman started smoking inside the place and I happened to be walking by with some glasses. I informed her that she had to either put it out or be escorted out by the bouncer. And lucky me had that woman wanting me to escort her out. But I couldn't do it because she actually put her cigarette out and I didn't have any reason put her out of the pub club. Even though I was behind the bar, she kept on hitting on me. Bouncer didn't do anything about it. Other staff were mocking me and even the manager was taking the pee, teasing and instigating the woman. She started asking me for a kiss and the manager said he'd only interfere if I gave her a kiss. It was my first job in Glasgow, as I had just moved from Brazil. I felt humiliated, anxiety kicked in, and, fearing being fired, I had to kiss her to have some peace. After that, depression took over and I didn't last longer in the place. Ended up being fired, but for other reason, but related to bad management nonetheless. That is disgusting. I can't believe you felt you had to do that. How dare they treat you like that? I'm glad you are not there anymore. Their loss. Hope everything is going well for you now. Not staff, but I got one. I'm a semi-regular at this bar I started going to and I've gotten to know all the staff there pretty well. One night this guy was there. New guy. Only been there once before that I've seen him. And from what I heard he wasn't very well liked. A few too many drinks later he's standing at the bar talking to me saying a bunch of unwarranted random crap. I'm a bigger guy, as was he, so I guess he felt the need to tell me, but it was things like, man, you could totally frick a skinny bee if you wanted to. Skinny bee love big dudes, man. I'm telling you, they love to feel protected and crap. Don't think because you're a bigger guy you couldn't frick a skinny bee, cause you totally could if you wanted to. All out of nowhere. Hadn't talked to the guy all night. One of my bartender friends turns around and she says he doesn't need to frick any skinny bee. He's married, and shows him her wedding ring. The guy starts profusely apologizing and I guess he had a moment of clarity, cause not too long after he got a cab and left and I haven't seen him there since. Got one more time the same girl saved my butt. Gotta love making friends with bar staff. This is a blessed story. Simple and effective solution. I had a woman at a bar on business one night. She came up to me after about 20 minutes after I sat down alone. I was having a rough day. She apparently was having a great one. Sitting there drinking my beer, she kept talking to me, grabbing me, and kept asking for us to leave because she would frick my brains out. Mind you, this woman was an obvious regular barfly and had been overserved. At one point, I got up and pretended my Asian buddy across the way, actually a stranger, was my best friend. She eventually made her way over and kept touching me. I asked the bartender if she could help me. She actually pretended to be a friend of mine also, said I was a part owner of the establishment, brought me into the office and let me sit there with her and the guy in the office. They gave me free food, let me finish my drink, had a good conversation, and some to-go food too. They felt terrible that a new guy had all these problems, I guess, but they treated me well and got me out of there unscathed. I can still see her whacked out hairstyle and the cigarette smoke that she stank of. Cool of the bartender to do that. After reading about 10 of these I was like, wow, this only happens to guys. Then I reread the title and realized I'm an idiot. Not exactly what you were asking for, but my boss had to sneak me out the back and drive me to my bus stop and wait for the bus with me. He couldn't drive me home because it was 2 AM and I lived 1 hour away. Because this guy would not leave me alone, we closed down the bar early. I worked as a karaoke host bartender at this place. He stood out there for 1.5 hours. He was very clingy while inside, wanted me to come home with him and everything. I have few friends at a bar I visit. Bartender. female and a bouncer, male. I'm pretty good friends with the bartender as we live really close to each other. Anyways, I was hanging out in the bar talking to the bartender and the bouncer when this really drunken woman came to sit by my side. She started saying that I looked lonely and her group of friends noticed me and she came to ask if I wanted to sit at their table. I politely declined, saying that I'm fine and don't really feel like socializing with random people. She proceeds to tell me that one of the women in the group wanted me in her bed that evening. Again, I politely said no and the woman seemed to understand and went back to their table. After a while, the woman who wanted to sleep with me came over, again really drunk, and started to ask me inappropriate questions like how big are you and I will frick your brains out tonight. Then she started to grope me, slapping my butt and trying to get me to feel her breaster and stuff. At this point my bartender friend came over and asked if I would go on a break with her and notice the woman. My friend put her arm around me and straight up kissed me and called me babe and stared at the woman really intensely. At that point the bouncer noticed what was happening, as he knows that the bartender has a boyfriend and it's not me, and pushed himself between me and the harassing woman. This annoyed the woman and she tried to punch the bouncer, who in turn did some sort of Chuck Norris-esque move and flipped the woman around and basically carried her by the neck and pants outside. It looked so glorious and the group quickly left. Later found out that the group was a bachelorette party for the woman who wanted to sleep with me, so I dodged a whole lot of drama. It pays to have friends in bars. That was awesome on both their accounts. Amazing. I can't believe the crazy one was about to get married. WTF. Never had someone use the safe word, but I couldn't even begin to count the number of times I've had people thrown out for not taking the hint, both men and women. Yes, I have had this happen in a venue I managed in Melbourne. The lady in question became very forward, slightly abusive and threatening. The gentleman was obviously concerned for himself and did not like the way the date had progressed. We booked him a taxi and walked him out a back exit whilst he was going to the toilet. I spoke to the lady and covered his half of the bill. She became hysterical, paid and then left. There was a huge power imbalance. Okay, I'm gonna use this post as a pedestal for this information for those of us in the industry. As a restaurant person who is a barely functioning alcoholic, if you have a friend in the industry who is drinking at your bar and asks for a shot glass of water, please give it to them. Keeping up appearances in the industry is incredibly important. I do one shot and one beer with my crew when we go out, then the rest is nursing a bucket of ice water with a few stirrers and a lime in it so I don't get crappy. I truly believe that the industry is perfect for people with a certain set of priorities, but one of the tolls is drinking and casual drug use. It's often easier to fake than to bail. Stay healthy and make your bed every morning. Love you. Kitchen guy here. The life is changing though. None of my guys care if I don't get drunk with them. They know I'm the type to have a beer or two and that's it. I'll still chill with them and play pool or darts or whatever, but they're super nice about it. Yes, and she was a friend, which was super awkward. Him, software engineer at IBM. Clearly a nice but rather retiring guy, mid-30s. Didn't go on a lot of dates by choice. Very soft spoken, low key, just looking for a nice dinner after work sort of thing. Recently-ish, 6 months prior, got out of a long-term, rather ugly open relationship in which they were both toxic and abusive to each other. She'd been going to therapy and was looking to start over, i.e. date a new type of guy in a new type of way. She was a friend from high school, so I invited her to come by our place. Since it was a suburban wine bar and restaurant mostly frequented by retirees and couples with kids. Very much not the sort of hard drinking, hard charging place she used to do. The date. I was busy and not watching, but it apparently went down in flames from the get-go. Her first 4 topics of conversation were 1. How she hated her ex. 2. How she liked rough sex. 3. How she hated religion. 4. How his very boring dress was a change. She then started in very aggressively on how much she likes Krav Maga and how no man will ever resist her again. At this point, he was done, and feeling mildly threatened and went to the bathroom, then came to the bar and ordered a safety drink. Like I said, she was a friend, so I was fairly surprised, but safety drinks are something you have to treat with utmost seriousness. So I ordered him an Uber and 2 minutes later he was gone. I then had to go break the news to her. I thought she would be fine, because friends and all, but she flipped. Like literally. Flipped the table and chairs, started throwing crap, and had a total Kyle meltdown, all while screaming about all the ways she had been planning to finally get laid. She's about 5 feet 8 140 and I'm 6 feet 1 225 and have had a few years of training myself. So if it came to a fight I wasn't afraid, but I also wasn't paid nearly enough to fight someone with 8 years of Krav Maga at work. So I just watched and tried to talk her down. The police were called, and she was ultimately tased and arrested. Guns were drawn. It was really ugly. Semi-happy ending though. Turns out, she had just started varenicline along with the SSRI antidepressant she was already on, and that can have a rare but known adverse reaction that causes very violent behavior. So she ultimately wasn't charged, apologized profusely, paid for everything, and even sent the guy a really nice note. They didn't date again or anything, but it was at least nice to see that I hadn't grossly misjudged her as a person in the long run. Also, mad props to him for situational awareness. Like, dang, he read things well. Holy jeez. That sucks that her meds messed with her that much, but good to hear that it wasn't her fault and that they were addressed. I've never had a man say anything. I've had a woman write down on a napkin and hand it to me via discreet handshake that said call 911. I'm afraid. So I called 911. Because IDK you say call the cops, I am not about to doubt it and be held liable for anything, and turns out the dude had 3 dead cats in his trunk. Homegirl dodged a bullet. Craziest bar story of my whole career. Not a bartender, but I have known many. Here is one of the stories I recall from an ex-bartender pal. An older woman used the Safeword drink, and as he was calling a cab for her, another bartender told him not worry. The guy she was with was her husband and she must have misspoke or he misheard. So he made the drink and brought it out to her. She never went back up to the bar, but he remembers her looking surprised by the drink. He felt that if it was a mistake she would come back up. That night her and her husband died in a crash. He was driving. His back was well into the .1s. My buddy tried blocking it all out, but after a couple more years he switched careers to animal rescue. He still thinks about that night, and will randomly bring it up at gatherings. I used to work in pretty loud nightclubs, one where one end of the nightclub had a DJ, the other a pianist or swing band depending on the night. So hearing each other was near impossible, so we had the tap system. You'd tap the nearest member of staff. 1 tap, I'm behind you or in your immediate space, so they don't knock into you. 2 taps, I need help but it can wait till you're ready. 3 taps, help is urgent, only finish what you're doing if that is urgent. Rough tug, stop what you're doing now and help. Me, trying to enjoy a couple for drinks before boarding my flight home. This older lady, who was about a dozen drinks past smashed, wouldn't leave me alone. She even continued to bother me while I took a phone call. Thankfully, the bartender noticed and walked over. I asked him if he knew when a random flight was supposed to leave. He apparently had a plan in mind, knowing that I really couldn't leave the area. He walked over to 2 gentlemen at the other end of the bar, and promptly returned and told me that they knew me. I look and they're waving me over. I picked up my drink and walked up to them like they were old friends, and magically that lady started to leave me alone. Turns out these random guys saw what was happening and had previously told the bartender that I looked like I could use some help. Great teamwork from the bartender and the tractor salesman. That lady had missed 4 flights that day because she drank too much. She was also eventually escorted from the terminal by police due to public intoxication and other harassment issues. As a bartender supervisor, if you come up to me feeling unsafe, you don't need a Safeword. Tell me what is happening, and I will take care of you. I don't care what gender you are, all are welcome in the establishments to enjoy themselves, but nobody should feel unsafe. Not heckin' cool. I would be sad to work in a bar where this was needed, not out of caution but perpetuity, and I am glad I do not. Mind your freaking language. This is a Christian subreddit. Hkin, indeed. Not a bar worker, but I saw a man being exhorted to a taxi from the back door of a pub. He was crying and the man who was escorting him had the pub's work clothes on. was currently calling the police by what I could overhear. We were going to that pub for a meal and the police came about half an hour later. The woman was arrested and she blurted out, "I bet my deadbeat of a husband called you. Gonna beat his butt when I get home." Well done lady, you freaking idiot. I hope that man's in a better place now. A waiver on that crazy bee. I only ever heard a couple of words come from her mouth, but the way she was fighting the police, saying those things and then Eve trying to smash the police car window open when leaving was enough to tell me there was a huge power struggle between her and that man I saw leaving, crying and even dead behind the eyes, grey faced. I used to own a bar and we were the only cocktail lounge situated in between a bunch of nightclub style places. They were loud and we were lively but not deafening. We would have quite a bit of overflow with hammered guests from these clubs and it was a pretty weekly occurrence for us to have some sort of nonsense spill over into my bar. Granted, no one asked for the code word or angel shot, I just happened to notice something strange. In the middle of our 1 AM rush I see this guy pull a chair from the table and set it at the entrance to a hallway where our restrooms are. I grabbed a female bartender and asked her to check on the female bathroom and see if there was a girl in there with anything weird going on while I went and checked on the guy. I ask the guy how he is doing and if I can get him anything and he tells me to frick off and he is just waiting for someone. I step away and my bartender informs me there is a girl in there crying and hiding from this guy who was following her from bar to bar and she stepped into ours to hide. I have her go get the girl while me and another bartender inform the guy he can't have his chair there because of fire code and he has to move. He resists, so we assertively walk him out of our bar while the girl is walked out our kitchen door out back where my staff parks and my female bartender gave her a ride to her car. In a busy rush we never saw a girl just going to the bathroom, so sometimes in these situations you have to watch for the other signs which could be anything. It was just a weird guy moving a chair that time. Okay, I'm not a bartender, but one time I was in a club with a couple of friends and an acquaintance sees me walk by while she's with an older guy and signals me to come over. I come over, she says hi, and mouths help me. I didn't realize, so I leaned in and she said it in my ear. She politely introduced me to the guy, then asked me if I wanted to dance. So obviously I said yes. As we walked off the guy said something and asked where we were going. We just kept walking. We danced for a couple songs then went our separate ways. I'm a man and I've appealed to staff before. It is better than confronting them. I did, however, stand up from a poker tournament when I saw the guy pushing his girlfriend around. Luckily by the time I got over there a couple dozen other people were right behind me. How do those Safewords work when the person you are trying to get away from is the same gender? They put the signs with the special Safeword in the restroom and they work great when you need to get away from the opposite sex. But how does that work when the person you are wanted to get rescued from is the same sex? Because if they use the restroom they have seen the sign with the Safeword and if you use it in front of them, they will know what you are doing. I suppose you can make an excuse to go to the bar or the bathroom and stop by the bar on the way. I've had it happen twice at my work in about 3 months since starting the policy. One was at a club night concert where another man at the gig had been trying to fight every man he came across. We got the guy who asked for the angel shot out and thanks to help from his description for security to root the other guy out. The other guy was being followed at a dance event we do. Got him out quickly as well. We use different safe words in differently gendered bathrooms, and just a genetic anti-harassment poster in gender-neutral bathrooms. And both times the men used the safe words from the women's bathrooms. They had been with women friends at the time, so I reckon they were clever to use a different word. I helped out someone once. I was out with my friends after work and a guy was being harassed by this girl, full on trying to kiss him and grope him, etc. I had seen him around as I was a bartender at the time but never really chatted more than the usual barcat, if you know what I mean. Anyway, this guy looked scared of this chick, so I pretended I was his girlfriend. She backed off after that. I know I'm kinda late to the party, and this is my experience as a man trying to get away from a woman in a club. This girl that I had had previous encounters with was being extra crazy one night, grabbing onto my arm and refusing to let go, to the point I had bruises on my arm the next day, and screaming in my face, etc. I went up to one of the security guards and they said they couldn't do anything because they said they didn't see anything wrong. If the genders were swapped they would have called the police as fast as possible. I think there should definitely be a Safeword drink for guys. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I'd be so pissed off if I was you. The security guard should have done something like, "Oh hey, we got a message for you in the back," or pretend they were your friends and started talking to you. They didn't have to physically throw her out or call the cops but helped you with the situation. The Safeword drink in my hotel is the blue red, so a guy comes to the bar with his weird butt date, like her hair was all nasty and crap and she kept getting in small verbal fights with other people. Something happened and I saw the lady whisper something in the guy's ear. His eyes immediately opened and he started panicking to the extent of sweating profusely. The guy was so nervous that he kept shaking the entire time. I got worried and asked him what drink he wants with my hand on the emergency button ready to call security. "Can I get warm sake please me?" "Yeah sure, you want anything on it guy?" "Yeah, lem get the blue red." I pressed the button and security comes from behind in like 2 seconds, already called 911. My guy immediately tackles the lady with her hands behind her back and holds her for straight 10 minutes until 3 cops came. Apparently the lady got into a fight verbally with a big guy in our bar and she asked her boyfriend to fight him or she is going to stab him and the big dude with the kitchen knife she had on her freaking bag. Thankfully the guys went home unharmed. Related, sort of, was walking home from a bar and in the middle of town I spot this chick walking down the other side of the road, maybe half a block ahead, opposite side. This car pulls up onto the curb and cuts her off. This huge dude pops out and tells her to get in the car. She says no. They have a verbal fight. She walks around his car. I'm about parallel with them now, the 2-lane road between us. He grabs her and starts dragging her towards the car. She grabs the spoiler on the trunk to resist getting hauled in. With great foresight I yell out, "Hey, frick you." Dude drops her like a sack of potatoes and starts towards me like the fricking Terminator. Screams that it's his fiancée and who the frick am I. He gets close and takes this huge haymaker swing that I dodged and I somehow tripped him too, so he fell down. I sprinted over to his car, pulled the keys, and took off running. Couldn't see the girl anywhere. I ran like lightning and threw his keys into some dude's yard. Kept running. You are a hero. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.